Hello there. It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. We all know what that means. Another riveting episode of Behind Breaking Bond. You survived this.
I barely survived the storm. I was actually in Austin Thursday
Yeah.
doing some legislative work, talking to legislators. I pulled up at 6:10. And 2 minutes later, I was tornadoed.
That was about the time. It was like,
2 minutes means a lifetime. You want to talk about timing is everything?
Yeah.
did you think then it was a tornado?
I don't think it was a tornado because I didn't hear that, but I mean, obviously things were going around, even my two hair strands. So,
Pretty scary stuff.
and let's see, we got power back Sunday at 10 o'clock.
So you went
PM or AM?
3 p.m.
Yeah.
So you went 3 days without electricity.
So basically Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Friday was okay because it was cool.
Friday wasn't
was
bad.
fine.
Friday wasn't bad.
It was okay. It was like, being in some apocalyptic, war zone.
The weekend was rough though, with no
I
power.
spent a lot of time here. I was
Oh,
smart.
they had power here?
They
Yes.
have power here. They have couches, pillows,
They have everything you need.
refrigerator,
Did you
coffee.
introduce yourself?
No,
Please
I'm
do.
not. This is Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services, Crime Stoppers of Houston, and tornado survivors.
Emily DeToto, introduce yourself.
Hi, Emily DeToto, Houston lawyer here for 27 years.
You were downtown when all this was going on.
Yes, I actually live in a high-rise downtown, which is 3 blocks from the courthouse, which is on the same street where that Conejo Malo, the Bad Bunny
Yeah,
bar got basically demolished.
right.
So I was in the path. I did everything wrong during the tornado or hurricane or storm. I got next to the windows so I could take video of them like rattling.
Which you should never do that.
No.
No.
And then
What floor are you on?
31st floor.
And she got on the elevator.
And then I got on my balcony and to get some better footage. And then I decided I should probably get out of here and I took the elevator now. But so we got in the lobby and a bunch of the residents were there waiting, but it was raining sideways. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never, even through Harvey, I've never seen it that bad. And like I was telling you earlier, when a lot of people were taking videos, all the furniture by the pool was flying all over the place. Half of it ended up in the pool, bunch of damage by the pool. People shared pictures of a bunch of windows and all the high rises just broken out. So on the trees, forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still cleaning up. They're cutting down trees that are, damaged to the point that they need to come down, trying to replace all the windows. It was bad. It was really
Did
scary.
you lose power?
I did not.
She did
lose
not.
power.
You made an interesting point earlier that you felt bad for the homeless folks because they're just out there with nowhere to go.
Exactly. They don't have anywhere to go. And to be honest, I really didn't think it was going to be that bad.
Right.
I mean, maybe I just wasn't watching the news enough, but I tried to stay up to date on the weather.
Yeah.
But I feel like I wasn't warned. Maybe I was. But yeah, even if they got warned, I don't think there's any place they could have gone.
And then you got glass just
Right,
coming out.
falling on
Yeah.
them, yeah.
Where were you at the time?
I was on 290
Oh,
with a photographer, Doug Biggers, and we were heading kind of towards it, and it was sort of light, and then all of a sudden it got really, really dark, and it turned kind of a very strange color, and we were rocking. I mean, the news vehicle, we were like this, and you had traffic on 290 that stopped. Some traffic was still going. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I had one of those moments where I thought, this is it.
right.
This is going to be
Do you think
how
that
I
would-
die.
Would that have been breaking news?
Maybe.
For me. And then I went for up until yesterday without power. And anybody out there that doesn't still, if you don't have power, I feel for you.
Right?
It's really difficult. What people do,
I have no idea.
back before there was electricity, but how could you survive?
Right.
People probably died of heat
Or-
exhaustion and that too. But heat exhaustion didn't even really know,
Right.
right?
Well, I felt bad because I recently leased a townhome by Memorial and Shepherd behind St. Thomas High School.
Yeah,
And I met with my new renters and I was like, oh, my house it's a castle. It's never flooded. It's never lost power. Sure enough, they lost
lost
power.
power. It seems like I live in Oak Forest, and the Heights, Oak Forest, Timber Grove Manor
Oh, yeah.
just got hit really,
Yeah,
really
they
hard,
did.
really hard.
It moved fast because it pummeled downtown.
Yeah. And it was almost like having a hurricane in a real short period of time, but not the notice that you get with a
Right,
hurricane.
exactly.
Because
Right,
you
that's
know
why I was
days
hopeful.
ahead that.
Yeah, that was my point.
We're going to discuss what does happen when you have something like this. You have a major storm, and what does that mean for the courthouse? What does it mean for cases? What does it mean for defendants?
What does it mean for reporters that have to go do weather stories? all of a
Right.
sudden?
I felt so bad for one of my friends. She was just getting rained on and pummeled, and but she did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my, I'm not going to lie, it's one of my least favorite things to do. In some ways, it's easy because you just look around and you talk about what's right going on right in front of you. But the bad thing is you're getting rained on, you're getting soaked, you're getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Last night, Raymond and I
Huge mosquitoes.
yeah, we were on the ship channel
Oh.
and just stand and you got a light. So of course
Yeah.
they're attracted to the light
Right.
and you get done. And it's like it's covered with big old mist. And we were spraying ourselves with,
You didn't have an Isaiah moment or.
no.
Although Randy did spray a mosquito and it just went, it just ate it.
They're Texas-sized mosquitoes. They're used to it. They're like,
That's
bring
right.
it on, bring it on.
Yeah, bring it.
What usually does happen, Emily, when you've got something like this, does the courthouse, does one person decide, okay, we're not going to have court? How does it work?
Well, so usually Harris County, they follow the HISD school closure system. So if HISD schools are closed, the courthouse is closed. But because in this instance, not all the HISD
You had
schools were
both.
closed, so it
Yeah.
was kind of like each judge was able to make up their own, whether they could make it either.
Yeah. So it's sort of a judge's call
Right.
for each court.
Right, and some judges did post on Facebook or other social media that if you can make it, come down. If you can't, let us know, and that they would not be forfeiting any bonds because, not just lawyers and judges and
Right.
prosecutors got affected, people.
Defendants, yeah.
So, but I was surprised. I was for trial yesterday, and I take the tunnels from my high rise.
Yeah.
I cross the street, go to the administration building, and I take the tunnels. The tunnels were intact. There was no major flooding like Harvey.
Yeah.
And there was jury panels there. People showed up for jury duty. So.
So
yeah.
business as usual?
Yeah, business as usual. And the thing is we're so used to calamities like Harvey and the
Right.
snow apocalypse. Luckily, unfortunately, we had to learn our lesson the hard way, but we know how to get up and running in a disaster.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the storm on Thursday, it was more of a wind thing
Right.
for us.
Right.
Where Harvey, when you look back at Harvey, it wasn't like a lot of wind damage. It
Right.
was just the flooding.
Flooding, yeah,
The flooding was incredible.
yeah.
What happened when you were practicing during Harvey? What was it like?
Oh, my
during
goodness. I still kind of freaked out that even happened. So the courthouse was flooded, as you know.
Yeah.
And it flooded up high. So we had to actually have makeshift courtrooms in the jail, in the basement of 701 San Jacinto. And talk about, just overcrowding. It was hot,
Would you do everything like actually have
Yeah.
a trial?
no trials, but we
Just
did have,
like settings and-
arraignments,
yeah.
and pleas and things like that. And it was first come, first served. There was no real order and there was no real court numbers. It was just emergency court.
So it didn't matter if you were originally in the 230th,
Right.
all that went out the window.
Right, exactly. And then it was first come, first served. So if you got there early, you signed your name and your case would get handled as your name came up. But, and then they had, defendants, just walking around freely, I'm surprised no one got hurt because it's close like this, just hundreds of defendants,
Yeah.
walking around.
And somebody could have freaked out and decided
Right.
they were going to hurt people.
Right, yeah.
Do you think back in Harvey, do you think it helped more from a defendant standpoint than a prosecutorial?
Probably
standpoint?
not, because we're still, so they created emergency relief docket after Harvey. And it's still up and running. And so couple Harvey with COVID, there's still people whose cases haven't been reached for trial. But, we managed through COVID as well. And one thing we learned about COVID is that we can do Zoom and we don't really need to go to court,
Yeah,
And I really preferred Zoom because I could have my laptop, my desktop, my iPad, my phone. I could be in 4 courts at once.
I was gonna say, doesn't it speed up the process just because you're not physically having to
Right.
go to these
Exactly. Yeah,
different courtrooms?
exactly. And like I said, you can be 4 places at once and knock out a bunch of cases.
And while when COVID hit, the courthouse was still,
It was open, yeah.
but they were still working on it.
Right. I don't really remember during the quarantine time, but we did do we switched to Zoom.
Yeah,
But there's still courts that do Zoom, which I appreciate. They've slacked off on the mask mandate, but I know I was in trial last week or a week ago, and the judge had what is that, a cap on the microphone so
Yeah.
that it wouldn't spread germs?
right. uh-huh.
She would make them each person put a new one on and then sanitize their hands. So
Yeah.
she was still in the protocol. She still has the glass out.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a trial by Zoom?
I did not.
Do you think anybody ever did?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
people did. I just don't think it would be the same.
You have to lose a personal touch.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so
people
the
aren't-
jury would be on Zoom too?
Right, and people aren't paying attention. I mean, I'm telling on myself, if I'm in court waiting to approach, I'm watching TV, I'm,
Yeah.
on my phone.
Well, you can remember all
Multitasking.
the things that would hit social media where people would be in some sort of a
Right.
Zoom meeting and they'd
Right.
do something stupid or
Right.
fall asleep or,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Or their dog would start barking.
Yeah.
something like
Or
that.
they'd end up like Jeffrey Tubin. Sarah couldn't resist.
right?
Well, we still do hearings for administrative license revocation hearings. So someone gets arrested for DWI, their license is in jeopardy and they're entitled to a hearing. They
Well,
request one. So those
like
are done by Zoom.
In a situation like we're going through now, let's say that a defendant is dealing with no power or
Right.
with, a messed up home. Can the defendant just contact the court and say, hey, can I get a different setting, or does it
Right.
have to be through?
And
the attorney.
preferably, I never like it when my clients contact the court directly. That's never a good move. So ideally, they'd go through their lawyer.
Yeah, because there's this whole thing about a defendant should never really be talking to the
No,
judge.
or the prosecutor.
Yeah,
Yeah, so a lot of times, some of my former clients have written to the judge directly asking for a bond reduction. The judge has to give me a copy of it because I'm entitled to see what he's doing.
yeah,
But I just prefer it my clients don't make matters worse. And that's what we call making matters worse.
when you watch, I watch this court show on this reality thing where they should court cam or something like that, and
Oh, yeah.
a lot of times, you'll have a defendant, well, Your Honor, and the judge almost immediately tries to shut them down.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because we don't know what they're gonna say and we don't want them to make their case worse. I mean, I've had a case where I thought was pretty strong from the defense side and my client made it worse by writing letters. And all the jail mail is read. And so he was writing
We
letters.
read it too.
Yeah, oh, do you?
Yeah.
He was writing letters to his family and, basically confessing to the offense or talking about what evidence they don't have. I mean, it's never a good idea.
I find it hard to believe too that people will be in jail and they'll say stuff,
Right,
incriminating things to a relative or a loved one.
right.
They gotta know
Yeah, they're
that
recording all the phone calls.
everything is recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're entitled to get copies of the jail calls, and some of my clients just love to talk on the phone. But I admonished them, I'm like, talk about the weather, talk about the Astros.
Just don't talk about your case.
Yeah,
They ever talk about you as a defense?
only how good I am.
I love Emily Daytona. She's the
Yeah,
best
exactly.
attorney ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had through the years, have you had crime victims that the weather has sort of impacted
Oh, heck yeah.
their situations?
No, yeah, well, you finally get to this point where you're thinking the case is finally gonna get, disposed of in court, and all of a sudden, boom, you're right back in the hopper again. So, you know, everybody loses on those situations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-win for everybody right there. So quick question. So I was up in Austin Thursday talking about some legislative issues, and one of the proposals we have is no more PR bonds for defendants on parole for violent offenses who are charged with felonies.
Right,
Now, you would think that would be already.
right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean,
Alan?
We're
we
putting you on the spot right now.
we
This is
talked
the
about,
quick 20-second answers.
we talked about, how there's no PR bonds for violent offenses, right?
Right,
We did a story, I guess, a couple weeks ago.
yeah, you can't, yeah, for a violent offense, you can't
Right.
get a
But
PR
that would
bond.
make sense, especially if you're on parole. It's
But
like
then,
getting a PR bond if you're on probation or deferred adjudication, you're already,
But then the one thing about that whole PR bond thing, and we've seen this happen before, where the judge by law can't
right.
grant a PR bond.
They give
So-
them a dollar bond.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's common sense. If you're on parole and you are accused of a violent offense, a PR bond maybe isn't the best decision.
Right.
All right, so that's one bill passed.
Uh-huh.
Okay, second bill that we're looking for right here is, okay, so we did the story, and we can never forget Rocky
Oh, yeah.
Andrews, you know, declared incompetent, then restored magnificently to competency,
Right,
and then given a $120,000 PR bond.
right.
So the question is, should defendants who were originally declared incompetent, then after being restored to competence, be allowed to get a PR bond?
Well, I mean, that is a tough one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there are some people that, once they're competent, they're not necessarily dangerous. You know, I
Right.
guess it depends on the underlying offense. Now,
But-
this guy, didn't he live in a home? We
Ye-
talked about that.
Yes, yeah,
That
Rocky
a good
was,
Story.
yeah, Rocky was in, what would you call
Several homes.
The
Yeah,
It's
rehabilitation
assisted living facility.
Yeah.
And then you got him moved into another one while we were actually filming the episode.
that was your fault.
Yes, it was. I take full credit for that. And he was one of the first persons you ever blocked on a phone.
Right, yeah, yeah. He
You
kept
didn't
calling
do
me
that?
and you know, my attitude is if I knock on your door,
Oh.
and I get it, you know, people are like, what, well, you're who, he asked me for a card, and I gave him my card, and he called like 8-10 times within a matter of minutes. And so I was like, dude, you know, we can't do this. So I blocked him.
That's fun.
But the funny thing is that's what he got in so much trouble for
Right.
to begin with. He was harassing this woman,
Oh,
like,
that's right.
it was crazy, wasn't it?
He was not just the victim he was being charged with, but a victim from a previous
Oh,
offense
that's right.
that he was calling nonstop over 100 times from the jail, and also writing 10-page diatribes to the judge
Yeah.
as well. So
Right. Oh, gosh. He's just making matters worse. That's the theme of the episode for today.
From a defense standpoint, I mean, that must be tricky when you have somebody that first as well, you're not mentally competent to
Right.
stand trial, and then a matter of months, okay, you are.
Right.
Is that difficult?
I have a client right now in San Angelo. He's accused of about 3 or 4 misdemeanors, not violent, but he was declared incompetent. And they allowed him to try to be restored to competency on an outpatient basis. Well, he didn't comply, so he landed himself back in jail, and now they're gonna try to restore him in jail.
Is
Then
that,
again, he has to
how do you
cooperate
get
with
restored?
psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
is that unusual to do it out? Because a lot of times,
Very.
the ones we were talking about, that you're,
In a mental health facility?
yeah,
He just sent to us.
yeah,
And so I can tell you in my 27 years, I've never seen someone be given the opportunity to be restored to competency on an outpatient.
at home.
Right.
Because that's what you're gonna run into
Right, they
is,
don't have to comply.
right,
And then if they don't show up to their appointments, I mean, yeah, so he's in jail right now and we're encouraging him to comply because his cases are stayed. They can't take any action. He's not able to aid me in defending him. So I can't talk to him about any possible plea bargains. I can't see if he wants to go to a jury trial.
These are
He's-
misdemeanors,
I
right?
know,
Yeah.
yeah. He's just in limbo.
Prior history?
He was given a pretrial intervention for possession of a controlled substance. And the misdemeanors preceded that felony, so they can't be used to revoke his agreement of pretrial diversion.
When it comes to determining whether or not someone is competent,
Right,
do you have a hearing or how is that done?
yes, so we swear out an affidavit and put our observations. I have a person in Harris County right now who's trying to be restored. And it was obvious from my conversations with him that he was not understanding anything I was saying.
Yeah,
And so I filled out the proper form, and then the judge signs it. It's a court order, and then he gets sent to a hospital.
but then do you have to have a hearing with the state to determine?
No, it's almost automatic that if the attorney requests it, then, but I have had back in the day contested competency hearings. But this was back, man, I want to say early in my career, where they would just it's by jury, but they would just grab lawyers from the hallway or from Kroger. They would just grab people from Kroger,
Yeah,
and they would just rubber stamp it. The exhibit was a evaluation from the psychiatrist who evaluated the defendant, and then we would go in the back and deliberate. So,
do you have to have a hearing to restore competency?
no, it's a decision made by a doctor or whoever's treating them.
And so that's all, so the psychiatrist, the doctor would
Right,
tell the judge, hey,
right,
Randy Wallace is coming to stand trial now.
Right.
And then the judge would just be, okay,
I'll
then,
tell you a story. You might remember, those who might remember, it was a big high profile case in Harris County. There was a guy named Nathan Dale Campbell,
hmm
and he became known with a not so affectionate nickname, the Eye Gouger.
wow.
The girlfriend had spurned his marriage proposal.
Uh-huh.
He didn't like it. Took a steak knife.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. It's pretty bad.
Yes.
Nasty stuff. He was sent to Rusk. He was found not guilty
Mhm.
by reason of insanity.
right,
So every year they bring him back before the court, competency, and every year the victim's family would be there. I want to say maybe about 8 years or so after the incident, all of a sudden he's declared, back normal,
right.
and they release him
Mhm.
from the facility. Keep in mind,
Right.
he was not guilty by reason
Right.
of insanity. The
Right.
victim's family, for obvious reason, wanted to know where Nathan Dale
Was.
Campbell was going to live.
Right.
Yeah,
They were told they were not entitled to be notified because by definition, they didn't even qualify as a victim because he was
I'm
found.
not guilty.
wow,
We had to pass a law.
really?
I ended up getting a law sponsored where any victim whose defendant was deemed not guilty by reason of insanity
Right.
and then released that you, like any other victim, would be entitled to notification.
Right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
whatever happened with him?
Hmm?
Whatever happened with him? do
He's
you know?
living in Oak Forest.
He's my next door neighbor.
Right.
I
mean-
don't know, but we can easily go find him.
I mean, I feel sorry for the folks in Santa Fe because, that kid, it's been years and that kid
Yeah.
is still deemed,
Incompetent.
yeah.
Right.
And,
Not competent
and,
to stand trial. He's not able to aid his attorney in defending him.
Right.
I understand why it is the way it is.
Right. well, and yeah, if you're mentally not able to
Right,
grasp the situation and do what you need to do, that there's really no other
Right.
choice.
Yeah.
Were you involved in the Yates at all?
I was not. I worked-
Right,
right. I worked in Georgia after that.
yeah, okay.
But, yeah, so, once they're restored, then the system will begin again. But until that day, they're just in limbo.
Yeah,
And you can't force someone to comply with the doctor, and they're not going to get kicked out.
right,
That we can't have that either, right? So
yeah,
there's escalations of, outpatient restoration, jail restoration, and then hospitalization restoration. So,
That would be a good story for you to go like undercover in a mental health.
Yeah, I'm spinning with the crazies. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Would that be undercover?
It's kind of obvious.
Be yourself.
I would, yeah, really,
Right.
just be me. Just
What
be
do
me.
we got tonight?
Tonight, on tonight's Breaking Bond, we're taking a look back on a case that we did last year. It was about a defendant who at that time was on the run. He was on bond, just took off. He was a wanted fugitive. And we interviewed a man who the defendant shot in the leg during a shootout. Well, he was sentenced to just 6 years, and you're going to hear what the man who got shot has to say about that.
Yep, so looking forward to tonight. So return to normalcy tonight, back on Fox News.
That's right. Yeah, so be sure to tune in to Fox 26 News at 9 tonight for Breaking Bond. I hope you're surviving the storm okay, and remember to be kind to yourself and everyone else. We appreciate you watching. Thank you.
Thank you.